Nintendo just officially confirmed that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is getting a full remake for Nintendo Switch 2, and it is coming in 2026. I'm going to walk you through everything we know from the announcement trailer, break down what Nintendo actually showed us, and go through what this remake could mean for one of the greatest games ever made. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Basically, this announcement came directly out of the June 9th, 2026 Nintendo Direct. And if you were watching live, you know the exact moment that logo hit the screen, the internet absolutely lost it. I want to be upfront with you, the trailer is short. It's a teaser. Nintendo did not show us gameplay. They did not show us Hyrule Castle, they did not show us Ganondorf. What they gave us is just a glimpse. But here's the thing, what they did show is really interesting when you look at it closely. The trailer opens with a narrator's voice, and just listen to these words.
Long ago, there was a land called Hyrule, created by beings of supreme divinity. At the very edge of this kingdom, there lay a small forest. Within it, an ancient solitary tree quietly watched over the inhabitants of the forest. These forest dwellers were called the Kokiri. Each had a fairy companion, and they lived out their innocent lives in these woods. However, there was one particular boy who did not have a fairy.
If you have played the original Ocarina of Time, you know exactly what that is. That is the opening narration, the very first words you hear when you start the game. And hearing those words again paired with what is clearly a completely rebuilt visual style is just so cool. After the narration, the trailer cuts to a close-up of a young sleeping Link. And this is actually where things get really interesting, because the art style here is a very clear departure from what we saw in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. In BOTW and TOTK, Nintendo went with this beautiful, painterly, almost watercolor-like visual direction, and it worked beautifully for those open-world adventures. But with the OoT Remake, Nintendo is going in a more realistic direction. Link's face is detailed, the lighting is soft but grounded, and it just feels different. Actually, I think that choice makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because Ocarina of Time, when it came out on the N64 in 1998, was doing its best to be as realistic as the hardware would allow. The designers were trying to build a believable Hyrule, stone temples, dark forests, an actual castle town. What you're basically looking at here is Nintendo saying we're going back to the original version, but now with hardware that can actually realize it fully. Then we get the Triforce symbol glowing on Link's hand as he stirs in his sleep, just right there on his hand. And the modern Ocarina of Time logo fades in on screen. And that is the trailer. That is everything Nintendo showed us so far. Short? Yes. But for a game this big, sometimes that's all you need. For those of you who maybe didn't grow up with Ocarina of Time, and there's nothing wrong with that, because honestly that just means you get to experience it for the very first time, let me just give you a quick rundown of what this game actually is and why this announcement is such a massive deal. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time originally launched on the Nintendo 64 in November of 1998, and it was at the time one of the most technically impressive games ever made. It was the first Zelda game to be fully realized in 3D. You explored Hyrule on horseback, on your trusty horsey Epona. You learned songs on the ocarina to solve puzzles and travel through time, and you faced off against Ganondorf in what is still considered one of the most iconic final boss battles in gaming history. Basically, this game defined what 3D action-adventure games could be. The camera systems, the combat targeting, the dungeon design, almost every third-person action game that came after it owes something to Ocarina of Time, and that is genuinely not an exaggeration. It is the most critically acclaimed video game ever made, and now it is coming back, rebuilt from the ground up, for Nintendo Switch 2. Let me just go through what Nintendo has actually confirmed at this point, because I want to be clear about what we know versus what we're still speculating on. What's confirmed? The game is coming exclusively to Nintendo Switch 2. It is launching in 2026, though Nintendo has not given us a specific release date yet. The art style is more realistic than Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The opening Kokiri narration is being used, we heard it in the trailer, and young Link has been shown sleeping, Triforce glowing on his hand. That is it. That is everything Nintendo has officially shown us so far. And honestly, for an announcement this big, Nintendo is playing it close to the chest, which just means there's a lot more to come. Now let's talk about what fans are hoping for, and what would make this a truly special release. Number 1, Master Quest included. The 3DS version included Master Quest, and it added a ton of replay value by flipping the overworld and completely redesigning the dungeons. If Nintendo includes that in the Switch 2 remake, that is a massive amount of content for players who have already beaten the original, and there's really no reason not to include it at this point. Number 2, a fully orchestrated soundtrack. The original Ocarina of Time soundtrack was composed by Koji Kondo, and it is one of the greatest game soundtracks ever written. The 3DS version updated some tracks but didn't go fully orchestrated. With Switch 2 hardware, a complete orchestral score for every single track in this game would be absolutely incredible. And quality of life improvements across the board. The 3DS version added some of these, better item management, motion controls for the slingshot and bow, but a full Switch 2 remake has the opportunity to really smooth out some of the rougher edges of a 1998 game while still sticking with everything that made it great. And here's the context that makes this announcement even more significant. The Legend of Zelda is celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2026, 4 decades of this franchise, and Nintendo is marking that milestone not just with this remake, but also with the live-action Legend of Zelda film that is currently targeting an April 2027 release. So what you're basically looking at is Nintendo building an entire Zelda moment around 2026 and 2027. The remake comes first, brings a whole new generation into the story of Ocarina of Time, and then the live-action film follows. That is a really smart sequencing of events, and it tells you that Nintendo is treating this franchise as a major cultural property, not just a video game series. So as of right now, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Remake is confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026, but Nintendo has not announced a specific release date yet. So we're just going to have to keep an eye out for a Nintendo Direct or a dedicated Zelda showcase where they give us more details, more gameplay, and hopefully that release window. What I can tell you is that I will be covering this game every step of the way right here on the channel. The moment more details drop, guides, dungeon walkthroughs, boss fights, all of it. It is going to be right here, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it. Take a look at the other videos I have posted here. I've got Star Fox Switch 2 coverage, Zelda Breath of the Wild and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom shortcuts, and a lot more Nintendo Switch 2 content right here on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you have a great day.
Oh.